Okay, so I'm making this video because a lot of people that I've talked to are very upset, of course, over the recent election that we've had for president. And I see a lot of venting on social media like Facebook. Some people are just downright angry. Some people are depressed, what have you. And with me, I was more on the angry side, and I still am to a fair degree. But one of the things that I was angry about is because I felt like there wasn't some type of action that I could take. There wasn't something that I could do. It was just something that was happening to me, and I had no control over it. Not saying that I do ultimately have control over it, but I looked for a lot of ways that maybe I could help, whether it's now directly or in the future. And just in kind of looking and talking to people over the last few days, I've found a few things, a few ideas. This is all a collection from other people, and I just figured it would be helpful for me to put this together in one list and share it with people that might feel the same way that I do. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and get straight to it. So some things on this list are things that you can do right now. Some things are long shots. Some things are really meaningful actions that could very well have a difference. But one way or another, I just want to be sure that people see these things and they're able to take advantage of them. So I'm going to start with the things that can be done right now as a direct reaction to the most recent election results. Of course, there is the Changecom Petition that seeks to plead to the Electoral College to vote against the way that they're pledged. Again, this one is one of those long shots, but it is one of the more immediate things that you can do. Basically, the Electoral College, they vote on December 19th for who will actually be president. Donald Trump has more Electoral College votes right now, but there are some that have mentioned some discomfort in voting for Donald Trump, whether it was during the campaign or more recently after the election results. That's not saying that they're going to, but I think the petition that's on change.com, which the link to that you'll see below, is at least a start in getting there. Because if you think about it, Hillary won the election by popular vote, won the popular vote by over 1 million votes. There were a lot of states that were very narrow in the margin that Donald Trump won by, like Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Carolina. So those, if there's any chance that some electors could possibly be swayed to throw their vote in a different direction, I have to take that chance. It could be a waste of my time, but I'm going to do it. I've already signed the petition, and so have, as of this, 4,360,000 other people. It's getting close to about 10% of the amount of people that voted for Hillary. It still has a little ways to go to get 10%, but it's up there as far as the number of people signing a petition. So the link for that is below. You can sign that right now. It takes a few seconds. Then there's also the idea that floated around on social media about actually contacting the members of the Electoral College. There was a Google Documents list of the people that are in the Electoral College in key states that would have the most effect in being successful, if they decided to switch their votes. I think the Google Docs list is down, but I do have, that list that I can provide, which I'll probably try and do that in the information below. So I've already drafted a letter and sent emails to all of the people that had an email listed. Of course, I'm going to send actual physical letters through, the post, and social media. Try and reach out to them that way, to voice my concerns and my opinions, and also ultimately calling them on the phone. But just taking actions leading up to the December 19th vote to, if there's any way to get these people to vote their conscience if they feel strongly against the way things are going. That's another thing that can be done right now leading up to December 19th. After December 19th, it is what it is. And those first two options, those expire. But until December 19th, those are two options for me that are in play. The third option also has a shelf life, but right now there are runoff elections that are taking place in Louisiana. The Democrat there, Foster Campbell, he's behind, but the race is still going. And the benefit to this, it's for the Senate, a Senate seat. The benefit to this is if he's able to capture that one Senate seat, then it takes the Senate from being a majority of 52 to 48 to 51 to 49, which makes the Democrats in the Senate their job so much easier, to, rather than needing to convince three people across the aisle to join their side, it's only two. I mean, that can make a world of difference. You never know who's going to be opposed to what in the future. So just doing everything that one possibly can in order to give them as many possible advantages in order for them to do their job more effectively. I think we have to go for it. So the runoff Senate elections happened on December 10th. Basically, if there's anyone for that information below too, I have links for a lot of this stuff below. If there's any connection to Louisiana that anyone watching this video has, if you have friends there, family there, and they're wondering what can they do, definitely this is a story that needs to be put in their hands. I'm sure they know about it on their local news, but just really emphasizing the need for voter turnout there, because as everybody knows, about half of the country that's eligible to vote didn't come out. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that would have been for Hillary, or in this case, for Foster Campbell, that may not come out to vote, and they don't necessarily understand the repercussions of those actions over the next 4 years or what have you. So, if there's any way to get that information down there, then that would be good. Of course, going to Foster Campbell's website, fostercampbell2016.com, to see some more ways that you can help that effort, whether you're in Louisiana or not. The fourth thing, the protests that have been happening surrounding these results for the election. There's nothing wrong with protesting. Of course, people already have that idea. They're doing it across the country. What I am strongly recommending, advising in this video is for people not to do things that give the other side ammunition to tear them down. Like, don't vandalize things. Don't hurt people. Don't riot violently. If you riot, do it peacefully. Not riot, but protest. See, you got me saying it. If you protest, do it peacefully. Because I know quite a few people that I talk to that, of course, were or are Trump supporters. That's all they talk about is this violence that's happening. And I'm pretty sure it's just small numbers of accounts happening. But because of the news organizations that they get their information from, it's being blown up to this exponentially big, sweeping across the country story, and they're really passionate about it. They're buying into it. Even though, I know that there are a few occurrences of people actually really doing stupid things, and we got to rein those people in. If you are protesting, you see someone doing something stupid that's only going to cause backlash, then step in. Try to prevent them from doing it. Talk sense into them. Help them to understand that their actions aren't helping the reason why they're protesting in the first place. So that's really all that I have to say for the protest bit. Just be smart when you do it. Don't fuel their fire. And keep the protest going, I think. Keep it relevant. Don't let the passion that everyone has right now just go away overnight. And people have been really keeping that going. I'm happy for that, and I thank them for their efforts. One of the things, and this is more of almost like a social media thing, we got to quit getting our news from Facebook, and because Facebook is just riddled with a bunch of pseudo faux journalists that just put stuff out there just for clickbait almost. And then also that spreads misinformation. So, I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, you really got to stick to, the big guns. I mean, your New York Times, your Washington Post, your USA Today, your NPR, your local newspaper, and your local news broadcasts, and other organizations like that. There's nothing worse than building this great argument around something or trying to defend something, and you throw out something that you believe is a fact that you pulled from joeforamerica.com, and it turns out that it's false, and you get proven wrong, and then all of a sudden your credibility is gone with the wind. So definitely avoid that. There's a Huffington Post article that talks about people using these backwater like news organizations to try and prove their points, and how they don't fact check, and things that you can do in order to make sure you're getting accurate accounts of things that happen, rather than just stories being repeated or being skewed to just serve somebody's argument. So there's a link to the Huffington Post article below. And kind of on the heels of that, support legitimate journalism. I didn't really give the thought to the fact that if you don't buy newspapers, you don't really have good newspapers in the future, or they owe their time and their efforts to something else when they take out ad space. You supporting your local news, your newspapers, your national newspapers, organizations like NPR, giving them money makes it so that they are not obligated to anything but the truth and the people that are reading and watching their news services. Because if news organizations have to sell ad space, then they're going to try to go for the things that are going to be over dramatized and just overly sensationalized. And like John Oliver said on his show this past Sunday, that's probably how Donald Trump got so much media coverage, is because they need to push that ad time, and Donald Trump was a hot topic, and so they just gave him a ton of ad time. So you supporting it's the same idea as with when someone runs for a political office and they'd rather get small, like Obama, like small donations from everyday average people rather than larger donations from corporate interests or things of that nature. It's so that there's no obligation to those corporate interests. And the same goes with news. So support local journalism. My local newspaper, you can get it for, I think, $20 a month. I looked at the New York Times, and basic subscription started at $3.75 a week for the New York Times. And you can get it digitally. You don't have to necessarily get a newspaper, but support something. Also, with the idea that there may be either civil liberties threatened, the environment being threatened, all of these different things that people are protesting over, because as we all know, it's not just protesting, the fact that we believe Hillary should be president, but It's protesting because we can see what's on the horizon with the people that are being called into the White House, having really large corporate agendas, social agendas that, quite frankly, very well could be racist. Um, a lot of organizations are going to need your help, like NAACP and other organizations that support the LGBTQ community and women's rights and Latinos. And there's so many organizations, both on a nationwide scale and then also on the local level, that you can either give money to or give your time to, probably even better, in order to help their efforts, just to help protect all of those things that have been gained over a long period of time very slowly. We would hate to see those things just kind of whisked away overnight. But yeah, support organizations that will need your help. The eighth thing that I have is when the time comes, or if the time comes, let's hope, if the time comes and there are crazy bills being put out there that require votes, things that you really need your senator to pay attention to and to understand your point of view. There's an article below that has advice from a former congressional staff member, Emily Ellsworth. And basically, it talks about her advice on how to get your representatives to notice you and to hear what you have to say. Of course, to boil it down, I suggest you read the entire thing, but to boil it down, she says, it's not letters, it's not tweets, it's calls. It's not emails, it's just calling them, picking up the phone and talking to them. So when some radical bill comes, out of the Trump White House, and it's put before Congress or what have you, definitely know what your congressperson's telephone number is in order to reach them. It's harder to ignore a phone call because it's their job to answer the phone. It's easy to ignore a letter if they're getting tons of letters every single day. But if the phone rings, the idea is that someone picks it up. But definitely read that article. That one was definitely very interesting. The last two are just more social, not social media, but more social. Recently, I met up with a group of people. One of my friends invited me to their house to talk with other people that were probably feeling the same way that I felt, or instead of angry, they felt scared or worried or any number of things. And it really gave us an opportunity to talk about the things that concerned us, to share our fears of what we believe could happen, and start to get that conversation going on a very local level on what can be done in order to help things out moving forward. And it was a very good conversation, and some of the ideas that I talked about today came from that. But it offered a level of support that I don't think a lot of people are getting. It allowed a place for you to, focus on those issues and really talk about them with other people that get where you're coming from. One of the things that was discussed is how to increase voter turnout. Midterm elections are going to come up in 2 years, and the voter turnout issue is a problem. It's a big problem, and we saw that in this most recent election. So that's a local problem as well. So it's not some sweeping message across the nation that's going to get people to come out and vote. People got to get creative on the local level, in your city, wherever you're from, to get people out there and vote. Because had more focus been placed on that on a local level, perhaps we wouldn't be looking at a Donald Trump presidency. Just my thought. And then my 10th thing, the last one, which I know quite a few people are not going to like, and that's talk to the other side. The people that voted for Trump. And if you live in some big city and you think no one voted for Trump in your city, I'm sure there's someone in your city that did. Talk to them. The reason why I say that is because it's one thing to argue with people on social media and to try to prove that your point is the right one. It's another when you have a conversation in person and they're able to better understand you as a person instead of just focusing on whatever the argument is. I had someone, close to me in my family that before they knew me, they had a mistrust of Black people. And, quite frankly, after hearing their story, I gotta say, I can't argue with them. They went through a very hard time, and that's one of the ways that things like racism brew and get started. But one of the things that she told me was that in knowing me and seeing me over the years, and me being able to talk to her and really just show her the type of person that I am, that had an effect on how she felt about Black people overall. And this is not just a white-Black thing. This is a Trump-Clinton thing, for the supporters. This is, the city rural area thing. The more we can help people that might be displaying some hate right now, or might be Trump supporters, or might be whatever, the more we can get them to understand who we are as people and get them to actually care a little bit more about who we are as people, regardless of what the issue is, then that helps them to think about those things when someone stands on stage and calls all Latin Americans, Mexicans rather, rapists. That really changes when a disability is mocked. It makes people focus on that a little more, where if you didn't build that relationship with them and they don't have that new level of caring and respect and understanding for you, they might be able to just let that breeze by. But if you stand out in that person's life, then whatever those comments are that are being said about that race, that sexual orientation, that religion, that stands out now to that person just a little bit more. And that might help influence their decision moving forward. So I know that there's a lot of people arguing, and there are a lot of angry people, and I am one of them. But if we leave it at anger, then it's just going to remain divided. That's it. But if you're able to sit down and talk with someone that's near to you, that's in your circle, that voted for Donald Trump, hear them out, have them hear you out, and not for the purpose of someone being right or not, but for the purpose of just talking. That's it. Just talk and see where it goes from there. Keep it respectful. Don't try to one-up the other person. And I hope it goes well.